My name is Vito Imbasciani, and I have had the pleasure of leading CalVet, which is the state's leading advocacy to speak for and tend to the benefits of all of our state's veterans for the last 2 years. And although I have personally visited this California Vietnam Veterans Memorial many times, this is my first opportunity to participate in a ceremony here. I can tell you that this is a very unique and moving event here today. That many of you here who are involved in or affected by the Vietnam War, or who had a direct hand in making this memorial possible, that you've come together in this spot today imparts a special intensity to this ceremony and to this beautiful memorial. 50 years ago, a generation of American men and women went to Southeast Asia to fight in a country most knew nothing about. They were a diverse force representing every nationality, race, and religion in America. Some were wealthy and educated, some were poor. Most were volunteers who stepped up to serve their country. Some were drafted and did their duty, and some had already served in combat before. They fought under the most brutal conditions. They saw horrors that they could not forget. Many were tortured as prisoners of war. Most were exposed to chemicals that still affect them today. But they endured, they persevered, they served with just as much patriotism and honor as any soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine before them. And after their service, they came home to a less than glorious welcome. Many in America seem to blame them for the war, or blame them for the bad things that happened in that war, and some blamed them because America did not win the war. Most, not all, but most, were able to put Vietnam behind them. They raised families, pursued careers, and served their communities. Factory workers, mechanics, teachers, firefighters, entrepreneurs, and civic leaders all. But while they were living their lives, they never forgot those who they lost, those who never came home, or those who came home with scars, physical and mental, and as we heard during the invocation, spiritual, and those whose fates are still unknown. Vietnam veterans fought for one another and put pressure on the government to provide the care and benefits they had earned. They fought for assistance for those among them who were lost or hurt by their wartime experiences. They fought for improvement to the GI Bill to educate themselves and their family members, and to preserve that benefit for service members in following generations. Today, our Vietnam veterans are aging, and the costs related to that prior service is growing. The effect of Agent Orange exposure is devastating a generation of men, but they continue fighting for access to health care and their disability benefits. They continue fighting to ensure that their brothers and sisters, whose Vietnam War deaths have taken so many years to manifest, are recognized for their suffering and sacrifice. Which is why today, for the 4th time, we are adding new names to the memorial. 12 men who died from diseases credited to exposure to Agent Orange. The men we are honoring today did not die in theater. Instead, they each carried home the burden of their battlefield experience and lived with it for decades before it took them. Their loss is deserving of recognition. And in addition, we add the names of 2 men who died when their plane crashed into the South China Sea while attempting to land on the USS Kearsarge in 1964. And I received recently a wonderful letter explaining or detailing that tragedy from Timothy McKinney, and I wonder if Timothy and his wife Marilyn are here in the audience today. Could you stand up? Thank you. Timothy was a crew member with the 3 men who died. He had flown 40 or 50 missions with them, and I don't know what to call it, but you all of those in combat know you turned left, you stepped right, something happened, and you survived. But he did not fly that day. He said goodbye to his his three crewmates, told them as a joke that this time they probably were going to miss the trap wire on their next landing. And unfortunately, that plane took off and had an accident immediately on takeoff and crashed in the sea and went to the bottom of the sea with all hands lost. He's here today to remember his colleagues. As of today, there are 5,673 names engraved on these granite walls, each representing a life cut short and a suffering that was unique to each of them. They're on the wall because they made the sacrifice of service and because their loved ones worked to ensure that they receive the honor they deserve. There are almost 620,000 other Vietnam-era veterans living here today in California. No memorial will ever be large enough to recognize them all by name, which leaves us with a quandary and one that we'll address on another day. Today, we focus our attention on these 14 men and on the 1,000 of Vietnam veterans like those here today who have never stopped serving their country and never stopped fighting for the others with whom they served. So, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the California Department of Veterans Affairs and on behalf of our governor, whom I work for, CalVet, which has worked beside you all along the way and will continue to do so into the future, I thank you all for your service and welcome home.
I'd like to now ask Mr. Larry Wallace, who's a senior advisor to U.S. Senator Kamala Harris, to come up and read a letter and present it to Dr. Bussey. How about a round of applause?
Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to be here. Senator Kamala Harris asked me to attend this event this morning and to read a letter to her friends. Dear friends, welcome to today's celebration in honor of the added names to the California Vietnam Veterans Memorial. While I wish I could join you in person, please accept my deep appreciation for your commitment to the remembrance of our nation's heroes. Very few make the choice to stand guard for our nation's defense, and so it is important that we always honor those who took on their tremendous responsibility, especially those who made the ultimate sacrifice. California is home to more veterans than any other state, and supporting our servicemen and women is an integral part of being a Californian. As we reflect on those names added to the California Vietnam Veterans Memorial, I commend both the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Honor Committee and the California Department of Veterans Affairs for your commitment to never leaving a brother or sister behind. Best wishes for a memorable celebration. I look forward to our continued engagement with the veteran community in California and throughout the nation. Signed sincerely, Kamala D. Harris, your United States Senator. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is, I'm going to go a little out of order, but I'm going to ask Assemblyman Ken Cooley to come up, and while he's making his way up here, I will read a brief bio. Assemblyman Cooley represents portions of Sacramento County. Previously, he was the mayor of Rancho Cordova. When he joined the legislature, he authored AB 1289, which established the Vietnam Veterans Memorial as the official state Vietnam Veterans War Memorial. He has also authored legislation to bring awareness to traumatic brain injury, the signature injury of the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. He has worked closely with veterans in both his public and private life, and he's been a strong supporter. Please welcome Assemblyman Ken Cooley.
I don't actually appear in your program. I will be very brief. On this day, I just want to thank you all for being here on this sunny day, reflecting upon the names on this wall, the heroes in front of us. I assure you that those who've gone before, those who've given their life or continue to suffer the injuries of their military service are on everyone's mind. I woke up early this morning before the sun rose. I went to Harold, California, where is the southern edge of my district. I then went to Wilton, where there's a history day today. I helped them set that up, but that whole room is filled up with uniforms and pictures of those persons who served in the military in Wilton over its history. Later tonight, there is a fundraiser down off of the Jackson Highway and Slough House for a program in my district, Horses for Heroes, help folks deal with post-traumatic injury, an ongoing program to bestow honor and support for our veterans. So we are here before this wall with these names, and I would just say, and I probably have said this here once before, the names are so important. And the best quote I have to offer about the significance of names and recalling the names actually comes from Shakespeare, who in one of his plays, William Shakespeare, said the following: "He who steals my purse steals trash. 'Twas mine, 'tis his, 'twill be another. But he who steals my good name steals that which enriches him not and renders me poor indeed." But we are not talking today about the stealing of a name. We are talking about preserving a name, expressing the name, honoring the name that brings to mind the individuality, the strengths, the sacrifice, the ties to other people with that name and who knew that name growing up. So I just want to say it's a great honor to be here and to be included in the program, and I just thank you for this occasion to look across gaps in the names that rightly belong on this one. Thank you very much.
Assemblyman Cooley, you're always welcome, and we know you're always here. I'd now like to introduce Assemblyman Jim Frazier. Assemblyman Jim Frazier represents portions of Contra Costa, Solano, and Sacramento County in the State Assembly. He currently serves on the Committee on Veterans Affairs, and upon assuming office in 2013, 2012 really, he quickly took the lead on several key veterans issues. His signature legislation is the establishment of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Honors Committee. He's also been a major sponsor and participant in the 25th anniversary of this memorial, as well as using his own funds to bring the traveling wall that heals to the Capitol in 2014. I'd like a nice warm welcome for Assemblyman Jim Frazier.
Good morning, and thank you very much on this wonderful and beautiful day. Thank you, Vito. From the bottom of my heart, you've uplifted CalVet and made it a better organization with your passion. We also have to recognize my friend Pete Conaday, who is a relentless advocate for the veterans in the Capitol. Some would say he's a pain in the butt, but I will tell you, it works. And he is such a good champion for the veterans that he inspires me every day to work on the veterans' behalf. And again, the only Northern California legislator that serves on the Veterans Affairs Committee, and I do so to work with Pete. I want to thank Reverend Bill McDonald for such a beautiful and compassionate dedication. I've also recognized this young man for his passion with an assembly resolution, a certificate, and he's one of my friends also. But it's with a heavy heart that we're here today to memorialize our loved ones for their sacrifices that they made and remembered the spirit of joy that they brought us. I will tell you that In 1983, Assemblymember Richard Floyd carried the legislation to establish this wonderful memorial and recognize the men and women who gave their all in service to the United States of America during the Vietnam War. Most of the names of our sons and daughters, family and friends listed on this memorial behind me died while our nation was fighting in Vietnam. Today, we add 14 more names to the list that has far too many already. Today, we add the names of heroes who are often not included, to be lost to the sands of time. Just 4 years ago, Governor Brown signed a bill I authored with Pete's help to include on this memorial the names of California veterans who died after the war due to illness, injury, or other complications resulting from their service in the war. My Uncle Rick Neal is one of those being added today, who, like many of our other veterans, suffered from complications due to the use of the herbicide Agent Orange during the Vietnam War. When I first met Pete, I had told him that my uncle had been, his death certificate actually stated, died from complications due to Agent Orange. But that just didn't ring for my uncle. My cousin Jesse has diamond black fan disease, and they think it's attributable to that also. So it doesn't just happen to our veteran, but their children also are suffering from this horrible herbicide. Rick grew up in Concord and served as a forward artillery observer in the U.S. Army, Big Red 1. He was dusted constantly by the herbicide throughout his service. Rick was a wonderful man, a mentor to me. Loved to hunt, fish. Retired, and then 2 months succumbed to cancer because of his exposure to Agent Orange. I will tell you that he died at the age of 53. Way too young for a man or anybody who served in such a noble effort to make our country free. But I will tell you that unfortunately Rick's mother and other family members couldn't be here today, but I assure you this resemblance truly means the world to all of us. And again, we did not treat our veterans fairly on their return, so I will say again, welcome home. Thank you.
Thank you for those wonderful words, Jim. We're now going to ask the committee members to come up and read a short paragraph or two about each. I think you guys are a little bit ahead, but I'm going to go on. All right, so we're going to read the names in a short paragraph. Mr. Fred Romero, please come up and read David Joseph Betty's paragraph, assuming I can find it. You got it? Okay. Why don't we have the committee members come up here and stand behind me so we can make sure we get all these things done right.
It's okay, take your time. Oh, sorry, Al. Brothers, I want to thank everybody for coming today. This is a great honor for us to honor our fellow veterans that were in Vietnam. I'm on the committee. I've been on the committee for 4 years. This is really helping me to heal. The first name is Corporal David Joseph Betty, U.S. Marine Corps. Mr. Betty was born December the 18th, 1949 in Bakersfield, California. At the age of 20, he enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, following in his father's footsteps. After training at Camp Pendleton, he deployed to Vietnam for 13 months with 7th Marines, 1st Marine Division. He earned the Vietnam Campaign Medal, Combat Action Ribbon. Mr. Betty worked as a veterans advocate in Ventura, where he lived and retired. He was a past president and vice president of Vietnam Veterans of Ventura County and spoke regularly at high schools and colleges, sharing in his Vietnam experiences. Due to his tour in Vietnam, he faced many obstacles related to Agent Orange exposure. His service dog, Sarge, was by his side, protecting him until the end. He died April 30th, 2015. Mr. Betty was a passionate musician and natural-born drummer. He had a huge personality and a sense of humor and showed tremendous generosity and love for his family, friends, and fellow Marines and veterans.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen, fellow veterans, and public. Thank you for this honor. James Allen Gray was born in June of 1949 in Sacramento. He had 3 sisters and 2 brothers. He graduated from Concord High School in 1968 and was drafted into the Army before graduation. He entered the Air Force in July of 1968, served in Vietnam from 1969 to 1970. Mr. Gray received a medical honorable discharge in March of 1971. He married Betty Barton in 1974, and the couple moved to Grass Valley in 1976. Their son, Joseph, was born in 1986. They moved to Auburn in 1987, where Mr. Gray passed away in November of 1997. His 2 major loves, besides his wife, was his 1965 Corvette and his son, Joseph Allen Gray. Thank you.
Good morning. This is a little hard because Ernest Allen Meekins served in Vietnam the exact same time I did. Ernest Allen Meekins, aka Ernie, aka the Gentle Giant, was born October 18th, 1946 in San Bernardino. He was raised by his mother, Genevieve, after his father passed on away when he was only 13 years old. Mr. Meekins worked for the county of San Bernardino for 33 years before retiring in 2007. He was the manager for Child Protective Services. He and his wife, Dana Mathis Meekins, had 3 children, Zachary, Kyle, and Chad Meekins, and 1 grandchild, Wanda Meekins. He served his country when he was drafted and sent to Vietnam from 1967 to 1969. During his service, he was in an area heavily doused with Agent Orange, and he had health issues related to this exposure. He passed away February 19th, 2016.
Gregory Keith Hodson was born January 24th, 1943, to parents F.K. Jim Hodson and Betty Farrell Hodson. He had 2 sisters, Alice Ann Hodson and Martha Rose Hodson Cruz, and 2 brothers, Donald B. Braden and Charles Scott Hodson, all of Tillamook, Oregon. His life goal was to become a pilot. As a boy, he made many model airplanes that his father suspended from the ceiling. At about age 10, he moved to the Sacramento area to live with his mother and graduated from James Marshall High School in West Sacramento in 1961. He then enlisted and became a United States Navy pilot. On October 2nd, 1964, Mr. Hodson, along with Lieutenant Harold S. Roach Jr. and AT-3 Horace E. Rainey, was returning to the USS Kearsarge in the South China Sea after a training mission. On their third attempt to land in severe weather, the plane fell off the bow, and all 3 crew members perished. Their bodies were never found. Mr. Hodson was 21 years old.
William Riley was born January 7th, 1945 in LA, California. He was drafted to the U.S. Army in September 65. After basic training, driving a truck, he was stationed at Fort Lewis, Washington, where he was married to a nurse of Santa Weber's. Shortly after his deployment in Vietnam, he was driving a truck from Cam Bay to wherever ammo supply was needed. His brother and other service Vietnam DFC Vince Riley was killed in action on October 67 in the Battle of Oc Tay. Mr. Riley and his wife and 3 children, Tom, Mary, and Alice, sweetheart Alice Harrison, came into his life after the death of his wife. We have action, adult sporting events, and family school activities. He died May 2015.
Good morning. I'm here to speak of 2 of my brothers that are being added to the memorial today. First will be Seaman Jerry Ray Oliver, U.S. Navy, from Modesto. Mr. Oliver was born February 8th, 1950 in Stockton, California. A 4th generation Californian, he graduated from Sonora High School in June of 1968 and enlisted in the Navy that October. He attended submarine school and served for 1 year as a fireman for the Seabees in the Fire Protection Division in Da Nang. He was awarded the Navy Achievement Medal, the Navy Defense Service Medal, and the Vietnam Campaign Medal with 1960 device. The Republic of Vietnam Meritorious Unit Citation, Infantry, the Infantry Cross, Ribbon, the Ribbon Bar. Mr. Oliver was happily married to his wife Susan Oliver for 42 years. They had 3 children and then grandchildren. He spent hours outside tending his garden or playing with his grandkids. He was an avid sports fan and loved cheering for the San Francisco Giants and the 49ers. He died November 1st, 2015. The second one is very personal to me. Prior to today, I had 8 friends from high school, my graduating class, on this memorial. Today's edition of my brother from the chapter of VVA chapter in Sonora 391. He was my mentor and also my friend, very, very close friend. Victor Mario Salas was born in Panama on April 26, 1946. At the age of 14, he moved to the United States when his mother married an American serviceman. Shortly after graduating from high school in Seaside, California, he was drafted into the U.S. Army in 1967 and deployed in Vietnam. After returning in 1969, he began taking mill and cabinet classes. This led to a 30-year career as a cabinet maker. He had his own company, Marlon Cabinets, and took pride in his custom work. He was really good at it too. In 1973, he married and started a family. Had 6 children: Lori, Danielle, Layla, Marta, Jamil, and Nicholas, some of which are here today. Mr. Salas was active in his community and was especially passionate about supporting veterans' causes. He was a proud member of the Tuolumne County Chapter 391 of Vietnam Veterans of America, as well as the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the American Legion, the Disabled Veterans of America, and the Tuolumne County Veterans Committee. To his family and friends, Mr. Salas is best known for his generosity and kindness, always willing to lend a hand to give the tie-dye shirt off his back to anyone in need. He died December 10th, 2016. I gotta say that in my pocket, I hold here a Medal of Honor Challenge coin given to me honorably. I was honored, given to me by one of the members of Chapter 391 who's no longer with us. This will always be in my pocket, but Mario will always be in my heart. Thank you.
Tech Sergeant Richard P. Susoff, born December 4th, 1937, Auburn, California, attended Placer City Schools. He entered the Air Force on Governor Knight's flight in 1955. Mr. Susoff belonged to the gunfighters of Vietnam, serving in Da Nang, Cam Bay. He was in the Air Force for 21 years and served in numerous duty stations, including Washington, North Dakota, Florida, Okinawa, Japan, Korea, the Philippines, Spain, France, Germany, and England. He and his wife Mary had 4 sons: Richard, Mark, John, and Daniel, who preceded him in death. After retiring from the Air Force, Mr. Susoff worked for the Marysville Joint Unified School District for 20 years. He suffered from conditions related to his exposure to Agent Orange and passed away October 23rd, 2014. Thank you.
Good morning. This is a special day for me to have my brother being honored, and he was telling me while I'm waiting, we do want to express our concern and prayers for all of us that are in fire areas throughout California. This is a special occasion, but there are many other things going on in our lives, and we appreciate everybody being here today. My brother Thomas Christopher O'Hare was born August 8th, 1945 in Tampa, Florida, because my parents were both in the Army Air Corps and stationed there. He served in the Army from 1963 to 1966, including 1 year in Vietnam, where he was a mechanic and helicopter door gunner with the 504th MP Battalion. Upon returning home, he attended Los Angeles City College and became a welder, a good welder. He worked as a welding inspector on the Sanofri nuclear power plant building project for Bechtel for 8 years. Mr. O'Hare, my brother Tom, also known as TC, Tomcat, was a lifelong tinkerer. He was preoccupied with mechanics and designs, and a mix that resulted in his creation of the Bonnie Drive transmission, which was used on the Harley Streamliner that broke the motorcycle world speed record in 1990. He designed specialty parts for motorcycles and made several bikes for the television show Knight Rider in the mid-1980s. Many of Tom's friends, who are also Vietnam vets who couldn't be here today because of the timeliness of this, brought him their motorcycles in a box, and Tom would sit in the garage putting them back together, and he built many, many beautiful specialty bikes. There's 2 of them that are in Japan in showcases. And he built me my first go-kart. That's how we started. He's an honorary member of the Long Beach Police Officers Association and a former member of the Elks Lodge number 888 of Long Beach. He's also a lifelong member of VVA national level, Vietnam Vets of America. He had service-related connected health issues due to his exposure to Agent Orange while serving in Vietnam, and he died of a heart attack at 58 years old. And in closing, I'd like to say that in just last year, HR 1769 passed, which is the Toxic Exposure and Research Act. That's for all of us. We were all exposed to Agent Orange when we were in country. And so that act, please follow it through. It's for our generation and it's for our children and grandchildren so that we can get the help that we need for these diseases. Thank you.
Thank you. George Richard Neal, known to his friends and family as Rick, was born December 17, 1944, and grew up in Concord, California. He served our country as a forward artillery observer in the Army, ultimately achieving the rank of sergeant. He was awarded a National Defense Service Medal, a Bronze Star Medal, a Vietnam Service Medal, a Vietnam Campaign Medal, and an Air Medal. Following his military service, Mr. Neal enrolled in a carpenter apprenticeship school and began a 30-year career as a residential carpenter. I'm sure a good one. Active in the Carpenters Local 2046 Union, he mentored many others in carpentry, including his nephew, Jim Frazier. Mr. Neal was often quiet and reflective, and he enjoyed hunting and fishing in his free time. On January 23, 1998, just months after retiring, he died from complications related to the use of Agent Orange during his service in the Vietnam War. He was survived by his wife, Rosie Valero, 2 children, Jesse and Seth, a sister, Kay Frazier, a brother, Ron Neal, and his nephew, Assemblyman Jim Frazier.
James Brady. James Brady was born on December 12, 1947 in Ohio. At a very young age, he moved to Stockton, California, where his family owned a hotel. In 1966, he graduated from Edison High School, where he played football, ran track, was on the wrestling team, and participated in the Key Club. He joined the Army in February of 1967 and completed basic training at Fort Ord. He served as a heavy vehicle driver in Vietnam for 1 year, just before being discharged that next January, 1970. He was awarded the National Defense Medal, the Vietnam Service Medal, the Vietnam Campaign Medal, and the Good Conduct Medal. After service, Mr. Brady attended San Joaquin Delta College and the University of Pacific. He worked as an insurance salesman, managed several theaters, and was a really excellent personal trainer for members of the San Francisco 49ers. Mr. Brady was inducted into the Stockton Black Sports Hall of Fame in 2006. He died in May 17, 2012.
Ronald V. Westberg. Ron was born April 11, 1943 in Sacramento, where he lived the majority of his life. He served in the United States Marine Corps from January 66 to January 68. He completed his training at Camp Pendleton and served as a truck driver in Vietnam. He received the National Defense Service Medal, the Vietnam Service Medal with 1 star, and the Vietnam Campaign Medal. Mr. Westberg had 2 sons, Shane and Brian, who preceded him in death. He was married to Linda Westberg for 22 years. He had his own landscaping business for over 20 years, enjoyed working outside. He loved to fish and camp with his son Shane and friends Art, Chuck, and Jack. Thank you.
It's my honor to introduce somebody from my town, Elk Grove. Went to school there. Dennis Wilbur Williams was born January 27, 1947 in Alabama. But at the age of 5, he and his family moved to California, and he went to grade school in Elk Grove, high school in Rio Vista. At the age of 12, he was milking cows on a dairy farm, and during his teens, he worked on a farm planting, irrigating, and harvesting crops.
Mr. Williams was drafted into the Army and served as a veterinarian's technician from 1966 to 1968. Following his Vietnam service, he worked as a bus driver, did construction work and asphalt work. In 1983, he found employment in Sacramento County and worked until his retirement in 2006. He was a 100% disabled veteran exposed to Agent Orange while in Vietnam, and his family called him Uncle Duck.
Lieutenant Harold Stewart Roach Jr. was born April 19, 1933 in San Gabriel, California. He graduated from San Gabriel High School and worked at the San Gabriel Tribune as a young man. He was part of the NROTC program at the University of Southern California, where he met Patricia Dow. They soon married and had 3 children, Adele, Elaine, and Mark. He served in the U.S. Navy for almost 10 years, stationed in Florida, Texas, California, and Tennessee. He served in squadrons VS-23 and VS-21 and deployed on the USS Princeton and USS Yorktown. In 1964, Mr. Roach was deployed on the USS Kearsarge, responding to the Gulf of Tonkin incident. He had run more than 22 missions in his S-2F tracker plane along the coast of Vietnam before the fatal flight of October 2nd, 1964, when he and 2 other men lost their lives when their plane crashed off the carrier deck and into the South China Sea. He was 31.
Thank you to the committee members for reading those names. How about a round of applause for them? And a round of applause for the Scottish American Military Society. We're now coming towards the close of our program. So would you now please stand while a piper will play Amazing Grace, and then we will be followed by taps performed by Baldwin Wong, the state bugler for the Veterans of Foreign Wars, Department of California. And I don't know if I gave the bagpiper enough time to warm up. Go for it. Standing for taps. Please be seated now. We have established a tradition of presenting wreaths at these events at the memorial. So those of you who have the wreaths, I will announce you to come forward. So the first wreath will be presented by the California Department of Veterans Affairs, Dr. Vito Imbasciani. And sometimes we may need some help finding the wreaths and finding two people to help carry it. I'll give them a few minutes to warm up or find their wreaths and line up. Tell you what, go ahead and line up, and it'll be first come, first serve. I might mention that we normally have a 21 gun salute at these ceremonies. However, we're no longer able to do that in Capitol Park. Oh darn, did Jen Cooley leave already? I also, while we're waiting, I want to point out somebody who shows up at every event. And Roger Dickinson, would you please stand up? Roger is a former county supervisor and former assemblyman. So please start the wreath forward. The first wreath will be by the California Department of Veterans Affairs. The next wreath will be presented by the American Legion. The next wreath will be by the Disabled Veterans of America, or Disabled American Veterans, Chapter 6. The next wreath will be by the Military Officers Association of America, the California State Council of Chapters. Please come forward. Next wreath will be presented by the Military Order of the Purple Heart, Department of California. South. The next wreath will be presented by American veterans, better known as AMVETS. If the other wreaths would line up and get in the I believe the next one is this the Veterans Memorial or VBA? The next wreath is by Chapter 391 of the Vietnam Veterans of America. Next wreath is presented by the American GI Forum of California, a Hispanic American Veterans Organization. Next wreath will be by Chapter 500 of the Vietnam Veterans of America. And Douglas McLean, could you start making your way up here? And the next one, I believe, is from the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Honors Committee. I'd like to have a round of applause for the Vietnam Veterans Honor Committee. They're all volunteers and donate their time. And the last wreath will be from the Sacramento Veterans Affiliated Council.